Welcome to the first episode of the series, where we cut through the noise and dig into the psychological truths most people don't want to hear. Today's topic is one that almost every ambitious person struggles with, and most don't even realize it's happening. The dopamine trap, why you never feel productive. If you've ever ended your day exhausted but feeling like you accomplished nothing, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. We have to start by understanding what dopamine actually is. Most people think of it as a pleasure chemical. That's misleading. Dopamine is actually more about anticipation than it is about pleasure. In fact, a well-known 1990s study by Dr. Wolfram Schultz found something fascinating. When monkeys were trained to press a lever to get a reward, dopamine levels spiked not when the reward arrived, but when the cue for the reward appeared. This changes everything. Your brain doesn't release dopamine because you finished a task. It releases dopamine because it thinks you're about to do something rewarding. That's the trap. When you scroll social media, when you plan your week, when you think about your goals, your brain is releasing dopamine. You get the rush of motivation but none of the real-world results. It's all anticipation. And that's why you feel like you're doing a lot, but accomplishing little. Let me paint a picture. You wake up, you make a to-do list, you clean your desk. You watch a 10-minute motivational video. Then you open 12 tabs, all with articles and tips for better focus. 2 hours later, you haven't done the actual task you needed to do. Sound familiar? All those steps gave you a dopamine drip. Your brain felt good. It rewarded you, not because you were productive, but because you were preparing to be productive. That's the trap. This is what researchers call non-instrumental behavior, actions that feel goal-oriented but actually don't move you forward. And in a digital world, these behaviors are endless. Apps are designed to trigger dopamine anticipation. Likes, notifications, new messages, it's all bait. Let's go deeper. Even when you do finish something, you check off a task, finish a workout, complete a project, why do you still feel restless? Here's why. The dopamine system is inherently dissatisfied. Once you reach a goal, dopamine activity drops off, and your brain starts looking for the next hit. This is backed by countless behavioral studies. It's called the hedonic treadmill. We adapt fast. What once felt meaningful becomes routine. Your brain stops rewarding it, so you keep pushing, more goals, more apps, more hacks, but never quite arrive. So it's not that you're lazy, it's not that you're unmotivated. It's that your brain is addicted to the anticipation of achievement, not the achievement itself. That's why you never feel productive, no matter how much you actually do. Here's another layer: novelty. Novelty is like dopamine fuel. New things equals more anticipation equals more dopamine. That's why starting a new project feels amazing. It's exciting, it's potential. But finishing? Finishing is boring. There's less anticipation, less novelty, less dopamine. Your brain is wired to chase beginnings, not completions. So every time you jump to a new idea, a new tool, a new hack, you get a fresh dopamine rush. That's why people become obsessed with productivity systems but don't actually produce. It's not discipline you're missing, it's tolerance for boredom. So, what can you do? First, shift your reward system. Make the act of showing up the win. Use a calendar. Track your streaks. Reward consistency, not completion. 2. Use delayed gratification tools. Write down urges to check your phone instead of acting on them. This rewires your dopamine system. 3. Introduce friction. Make distractions harder to reach. Use tools like website blockers, or even a second device for work-only tasks. Practice boredom. Seriously. Sit in silence for 10 minutes a day. Let your brain detox. Meditation, walking without music, journaling, they all train your brain to stop chasing constant stimulation. 5. Reflect on progress weekly. Because dopamine won't naturally reward completion, you have to consciously do it. Journal your wins. Review your output. Let's talk about overplanning. There's a psychological phenomenon called procrastination, the urge to start planning or preparing for a task as a way of relieving anxiety about it. It feels productive, but often it's not. Overplanning feeds the dopamine system. Each decision, each micro-task feels like forward movement, but it's a stall tactic. And the more time you spend crafting the perfect plan, the less energy you have to execute it. Sometimes, the best productivity tool isn't a better plan. It's the willingness to start before you feel ready. Here's something from neuroscience that explains a lot: the reward prediction error. Dopamine spikes when reality exceeds expectations. But when an outcome meets, or worse, falls short, of what we expect, dopamine drops. This means that if you hype up a task, like telling yourself it will change your life, or that finishing it will make you feel amazing, and it doesn't, your brain punishes you with a dopamine crash. This creates a vicious cycle. Anticipation builds, payoff underwhelms, motivation dies. You stop trusting yourself to follow through. Multitasking is one of dopamine's favorite tricks. Switching between tasks, email, phone, document, music, creates little jolts of novelty. Your brain thinks you are being efficient, but cognitively, you're not finishing anything. Studies from Stanford and the University of London show multitasking lowers IQ, reduces task quality, and slows you down. It fractures attention and feeds the illusion of productivity. Deep work feels boring, but it's where real progress happens. And boredom, again, is your friend here. Multitasking is one of dopamine's favorite tricks. Switching between tasks, email, phone, document, music, creates little jolts of novelty. Your brain thinks you are being efficient, but cognitively, you're not finishing anything. Studies from Stanford and the University of London show multitasking lowers IQ, reduces task quality, and slows you down. It fractures attention and feeds the illusion of productivity. Deep work feels boring, but it's where real progress happens. And boredom, again, is your friend here. Smartphones are slot machines. Every swipe, ping, and red dot triggers microbursts of dopamine. Try this. Next time you feel the urge to check your phone, wait 10 seconds, just 10. If you still feel the urge, then check it. But that pause begins to break the loop. This tiny delay builds awareness, and awareness is the antidote to compulsive behavior. We don't need to eliminate dopamine. We just need to stop being ruled by it. There's a common myth that motivation leads to action. But behavioral psychology tells us the opposite is often more true. Action leads to motivation. Even a tiny action, opening a doc, writing one sentence, doing 2 push-ups, creates progress. Progress releases dopamine. That dopamine fuels more action. So instead of waiting to feel like it, act. Let motion be the signal that shapes motivation, not the other way around. The people who seem effortlessly productive, they don't rely on willpower. They design their environment. Tiny changes, like keeping your phone in another room, using headphones with no music while writing, setting up a visual progress tracker, help shift your dopamine patterns. The fewer cues your brain gets from distractions, the easier it becomes to channel dopamine into focus, not novelty. Productivity isn't just behavior, it's identity. When you say, "I'm trying to be productive," your brain hears uncertainty. But when you say, "I'm the kind of person who gets things done, even when it's boring," you reframe your self-image. Dopamine loves identity cues. The stronger your self-concept, the more motivated your brain becomes to align behavior with it. So, choose an identity. Reinforce it. Act in line with it, and dopamine will follow. Our culture glorifies novelty, but mastery lives in repetition. Athletes, musicians, writers, they train the same moves, the same phrases, the same routines over and over. Not because it's exciting, but because that's where excellence grows. Repetition rewires your dopamine system to value consistency over excitement. And that's when real productivity starts to compound. Finishing is a skill, one that's deeply underrated. Starting is easy. Getting 80% done is common. But the final 20%? That's where discomfort lives. Self-doubt, fear of judgment, perfectionism, all rise to the surface. Train yourself to finish, even if it's not perfect. Especially if it's not perfect. Dopamine doesn't naturally reward completion, but your conscious system can. Celebrate finishing. Ritualize it. Make it matter. Here's the hard truth. Real productivity doesn't always feel productive. Sometimes it's slow, quiet, repetitive, invisible. But that's the kind that compounds, that builds skills, that creates results. People notice months or years later. Redefine what productive means. It's not how much you do in a day, it's how much of what you do actually matters. Focus less on dopamine spikes, more on long-term alignment. The truth is, productivity isn't natural. It's not how we evolved. We evolved to chase short-term rewards in a chaotic environment. But now, we live in a world where that wiring works against us. The dopamine trap isn't about weakness, it's about awareness. And now that you know what's happening, you can change how you respond. You can stop chasing the rush of starting and learn to value the boring middle that actually gets things done. That's it for today. If this hit home, consider sharing it. Or better yet, come back for next week's episode where we'll break down why self-discipline is overrated and what actually works. Until then, stay focused, stay honest, and keep showing up.